Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Eternals Issue 3. And this was another great issue, doing a great job balancing diving into the lore of the Eternals while keeping the plot moving on at a pretty nice pace. I mean, we're still kind of dealing with mysteries and everything, kind of going through, so this is kind of more on a kind of slowish burn territory, but we do get nice quick developments that are like, okay, we'll have to see how this kind of works out. So this issue is kind of split up into about two main parts, one dealing with the Eternal Thena and us getting kind of more information on her and her whole kind of role in the Eternal Society, as well as like her connection with the Deviants, and then of course Ikaris dealing with the Robson family and what he has to do with that, as we also get a little bit of new information on another kind of place at the kind of end of the issue. So we start off and we're introduced to the new Eternal, well, not new Eternal, but new that we have interacted with, Thena. And we see that she is with a lover who is a deviant, and we get that, of course, she lives longer than them. He would have about 10 to 40 years, according to the machine, as he's narrating, he or she. As the machine's narrating, and we see that she is in the deviant city of, the Mira. And it's funny because it like gives us the beginning kind of estimates of what was going on with the city in the beginning, and it had like 100 deviants in it, and then it goes to show us like all the rest of them, and it's like lots of them because they're like a changing race. So she, of course, is like looking out over, seeing what's kind of going on, but she can sense that there are turtles around, and she tosses a knife at Kingo, and he, of course, is playing up the whole ninja bit, and she's like, just quit with that. Why are you guys here? Of course, her lover's like, ah, shit, no, I'm out of here, don't want to get murdered, and he's like, oh, okay. He's a little bit flighty. He's like, pretty much the enemy of his people pops up unannounced, and he's not even in underwear. You'd kind of feel the same thing too. Of course, Cersei starts using, well, not using, but she goes into her kind of thing to kind of see, yeah, what's kind of going on here with you, Thena, because we see that she is a suspect because from the machine's kind of records, we see that she had talked with Zurus about 24 hours ago, and it pretty much ended with saying that she'd kill him. As she's pretty much like one of the prominent people in the Deviant City, and she has a great affinity for him, granted taking a good amount of lovers from him. She, of course, is not appraised of what is going on with the machine at the moment, and she was like, do I need my sword for this in the beginning? And Cersei's like, I don't know, do you? And then she's like, yeah, but I'm not a murderer. And she, of course, gets in with the Great Machine and starts understanding that it's broken. And at first, she kind of gets some pleasure that Zurus is unable to be resurrected, but then understands, hey, the Great Machine's broken, and we got kind of things that are gonna... that's gonna create a lot more problems. She's like, oh, shit, we gotta get down and fix this. And she's like, I'm a suspect? I mean, I kill, but I'm not a murderer. And the machine, of course, is talking about how she has killed millions of people, but she's not a murderer. But that also goes along the same timeline. Given a long enough timeline, anomalies do tend to kind of pop up. So they're pretty much trying to figure out what to kind of do. Cersei is still trying to see and get as much information in a roundabout way as she can from Thena. We then also see that Ikaris is at the Robson place, just pretty much levitating there. Toby's father, Alex, is like, hey, what's kind of going on? You know you're on my property. He's like, I'm not on your property because he's levitating. So unless he like owns the air rights above it as well, Ikaris is correct. And it's really kind of funny because people are like, well, a superhero just kind of like levitating in New York shouldn't really be bringing that much of a crowd, but maybe the thing is that he's doing nothing, and that kind of brings it around. And the machine also kind of comments upon the fact of like how people kind of use stuff with heroes, that oh, maybe the heroes kind of brought this kind of thing, because usually heroes pop up for when things need heroes, because they're just like, what are you doing here? It's like, I'm protecting your son. And it's like, well, why don't you kind of come inside or whatnot? But before that can kind of happen, he's like, you guys need to get inside first because there's hail coming. It's like, and their mom, Sophia, is like, I can kind of handle it. He's like, not this. And the machine, of course, is going completely out of whack. So we got hail that's normal size hail, and then beach ball size hail, and one that like fucking takes out a damn news truck. And Icarus, of course, is able to save some people, but of course this is happening in other places as well, and people die. But he's able to save these people here as he then goes in, because they're like, come on in, we got coffee, and we learn from the machine that Icarus likes coffee and likes people. So he goes in. And he did say that, from what I could tell, he gets inside there, and he's like, from what I could tell, there's really nothing special about your boy. And then the boy's like, God damn it, now I'm getting negged by a space alien. They're, of course, trying to come up with what's kind of going on with Toby. He's like, I don't know. All I know is that something's going to happen, and I'm going to feel it's my responsibility, so I'm going to protect him. And they're trying to be like, well, I don't think he can come to school because, clothes. Hello, Earth citizens. This is my cousin, as he's like a bodybuilder and levitates. It wouldn't be the most subtle of things to do. Of course, the father's like, why don't you put him in a space vault? It's like, we don't have a space vault. We got the isolation, but non-Eternals can't go in there. Of course, his mom's like, his grades will suffer. You're not putting him in a space vault. He's like, we don't have a fucking space vault. It's really funny, because he's trying to be like, listen, we have a thing, but it's not a space vault. But it's like the closest kind of thing that you would think of as a space vault. And seeing Icarus, you're like, God dang. He's like, no. Okay. And they're just trying to hash out everything of what's going on. And it's like, no, I won't do that. We'll work out some arrangement. The Eternals are Earth's guardian angels, and for the moment, I'm that for your son. And then he compliments Sophia on the coffee, and she says, thank you. It's really kind of strange. I didn't expect to come into this like political kind of intrigue on, and we are able to see a really good just character moment story of seeing how Icarus kind of deals with this. He's a very blunt, straightforward arrow, as he's described in here, but we are also shown this as he doesn't really mince his words, but if he feels something, he says it. And it's really powerful to say, the Eternals are Earth's guardian angels, and for this, I'm going to be your sons. And everyone's like, wow, yeah. Because a lot of people be like, sometimes being straightforward makes you be a really big of a dick. And of course, we see kind of dickish moments from Icarus because he doesn't like dealing with assholes. But sometimes that makes him seem like the asshole. And in this kind of moment, when he's just straightforward to the point with that, that's a really cool kind of character moment to see. Speaking of good character moments, we also see Thana's kind of past, as they're pretty much trying to deal with what kind of person that she is. And she is of the book and of the blade. And the machine tells us that she'd probably like us, and we'd probably like her. Whoever the machine is kind of referring to. We don't know if he's referring to the audience as in us, as he's relaying this, or if this person that is trying to bend the machine to their will and do all these various different kind of things is the one that Thana would like. And we see that her being with the Deviants isn't that unusual, because we go 100,000 years into the past, and Cersei pretty much is talking to Thana and being like trying to get her out of this one kind of relationship. And it's interesting because the machine talks about like how she's referring to this man as a man of science, this deviant, and how it's got different kind of contexts as well. But Cersei's like, all right, he's a man of science, and of course she's using it more as the positive. Well, Cersei's like, yeah, science is neutral. And that's an important distinction, because Cersei's like, all right, let me show you what's going on with your deviant lover, who's this man of science. He, of course, has been experimenting on humans and Neanderthals because he wants to be eternal as well. He wants to be like Thana. And she is just broken, pissed at this. And come to find out, the deviant views her as a prime specimen as well, and then reactivates and pretty much turns these humans and Neanderthals into like zombie kind of things. And we get the important kind of thing that Thana's love is not sought, as she goes and uses her energy manipulation, I believe, to make these kind of blades as she takes him down. And she is not one to mess with. Definitely not one to fuck with either. We see her very tender in the beginning with her current lover in Lemira. Here, this dude crossed the line, and we see what that love can do when she's like, this is wrong, and this is how she has to deal with it. And the thing is, she doesn't quibble with it. She sees what this dude is doing, she does not abide by it, and she kills him. The thing is, it hurts her to do so, and she says she will never love a deviant again, and the machine talks about how that's a lie, and that usually she does a lot of things for the truth, and that if it would suit her purposes, she would lie. But this is a different kind of lie. She doesn't know her heart that well, as she would go back to going with the deviants. But this is showing how she is more of an emotionally driven one, in at least this respect. Not that she doesn't think about consequences and everything, but she does have a big heart with these kind of things, with love is involved. So it's like, okay, interesting. So she's trying, like, that gives a good character depth and idea of who Thena is, and like, okay, if Zurus was doing something pretty sketchy that would be going on with the deviants, she'd be pretty much a prime suspect of taking out Zurus, and one who would benefit greatly from that. However, hand-wise, with what would be going on with who killed Zurus, it really doesn't line up. So Thanos might be kind of tied in with whoever is doing what's going on here. So they're pretty much trying to figure out what they need to do and what's kind of going on as we've gotten this information about her. And Droog calls in to Cersei to try and relay some information to her. And she's like, well, alright. She accepts it and lets everybody hear. And Droog's like, hey, are you alone? She's like, in one way or another, I am. And just them commenting upon how easily she lies. She is a good manipulator, but we do see that she understands these games. We'll have to get a little bit more information on her, at least for my take for what goes on with this. And we see that Droog is like, I got to Polaris, and like this is evidently the rival city to Olympia, and my father said, well, pretty much everybody's been murdered, and Droog is now in charge of that city, and has now jumped to being a suspect, as he even talks about that at the end of the issue. It's like, yeah, huh. We'll have to kind of see how that kind of works out. And I really enjoyed this because we see all these different things, and we see that Thena is also pretty much been analogous to Athena, and Cersei does, of course, bring that comparison up also about, like, wisdom and everything, that Athena wouldn't allow her lover to do that back 100,000 years ago with all that, like, death and torture and everything to try and extend his own life. So that was a little kind of bit that I liked. I liked seeing good progression. We are introduced to a new character of Thena that could be integral in what's going on. She'd had beef with Zurus, but wouldn't do what happened, and understands the severity of the machine being broken the way it is. So it doesn't really look like she's like the one that's doing what's going on. So I do like her being included in our little Eternals cabal that's trying to figure out and stop what's going on, and then Droog pretty much put into a position like, shit, this is not looking good for me. So we'll have to see how this all kind of like shakes out and what kind of new stuff we'll learn in the next issue. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.